Before we start the podcast, let's get through the rigmarole first. Remember, guys, this podcast posts each and every single Wednesday. The first segment of the show, we go through all the Miami Dolphins news you need to know about. The second segment of the show, we go through all the AFC East news you need to know about. The third segment of the show, we highlight some of the players that are must-watches on game day. And the fourth segment of the show, we go through the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A. So this first news is the latest on Juice Landry. This is referring to not his contract, but this is referring to the allegations of assault against Jarvis Landry, which is pretty much false. This story comes from Connor Bryan of Pro Football Rumors. This weekend, the girlfriend of Dolphins wide receiver Jarvis Landry issued a statement regarding the allegations that were raised against him earlier this year. So this is her quote. Quote, in March of 2017, the father of my child and I have had a vocal disagreement that resulted in someone calling 911. I myself did not call the police. When the police arrived, they determined that there was no cause for any arrests, nor was there any concern for my physical well-being. There were no arrests made. There were no criminal charges. I was not in any way physically harmed. Yes, we are going through a civil family court case, and emotions are high, but I would like to make it very clear that Jarvis would never, ever do anything to harm me or anything else, or anyone else. Jarvis and I are happy raising our beautiful daughter, and I would like to make a plea to the media that they refrain from spreading this completely false story. I think first of all, the Dolphins knew the Dolphins knew the details about this way before we did, and so did the NFL. So there's no suspensions going to be on Jarvis Landry at all. So if you're worried about that, that's not going to happen. This is just between Jarvis and obviously his personal life. It has nothing to do with anything. He didn't do anything wrong, basically. This next news story is the Dolphins considered trading for quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, which is an interesting story. Obviously, a lot of news came out that the Dolphins considered Tim Tebow, which was not true, and Kyle Orton. All of that was not true, which is not surprising. The only thing that was true is that I think the only thing that was true out of that whole thing was that the Dolphins did consider Colin Kaepernick. But let's get into this story. Again, the Dolphins considered trading for quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. This is by Zach Links of Pro Football Rumors. Before the Dolphins brought Jay Cutler out of retirement, they considered a number of other quarterbacks, in addition to Tim Tebow and Kyle Orton, which is not true. Miami also initially discussed Teddy Bridgewater of the Vikings, Brock Osweiler of the Browns, and Cardinals quarterback Blaine Gabbert. Now, if any of this is true, that's your guess. 'Cause some of this has already been disproven, but this is an interesting story. As far as we know, the Dolphins didn't get far enough to reach out to the Vikings about a potential Bridgewater trade, and that makes sense considering his murky medical situation. Bridgewater is currently on the PUP list, and no one knows that his status will be. Nobody knows what his status will be at the start of the season. It's possible that Bridgewater's gruesome knee injury from 2016 will keep him off the field until 2018. Even then, no one knows what kind of player he'll be once he's ready to return. So that was it. So the Dolphins rumored that they considered Teddy Bridgewater. If they were going to go for any kind of trade, I would have I guess it would be between him, if he was on the table, and Jimmy Garoppolo. Those would be my top two choices. So let's get. This next news story is concerning Jay Cutler's contract and how it affects Juice Landry's contract. This comes from Sam Robinson of Pro Football Rumors. The Cutler signing will make a Jarvis Landry extension more difficult. James Walker of ESPN.com reports the Dolphins entered Sunday with $17 million plus in cap space, with just $3 million projected to be available in 2018. While that latter figure doesn't mean a ton yet, due to roster moves they could make to increase it. The Dolphins lost some possible carryover money due to the Cutler signing. One Walker calls a mistake. Gase Bears campaign produced. Okay, that just goes on to tell you what Jay Cutler did with Adam Gase. So, I don't think it affects the Juice Landry situation because I don't think they were ever planning to give him one this year anyway. I think they're going to wait till after the season to figure out what to do with Jarvis Landry. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But again, even if it does come to that, guys, we can still franchise tag him. And we're going to talk about Jay Cutler's future later in the show, but let's get through some more news here. All right, let's move on to the AFC East news you need to know about. Obviously, the biggest news to come out of, I guess, the Patriots world was Vince Wilfork's retirement. Obviously, that was big news. That's about it for the Patriots. So let's move on to the Bills, who did some I don't know, significant moves. So let's get into the Buffalo Bills as this loads. Okay. If you didn't know, the Buffalo Bills signed Anquan Bolden. They obviously were, I guess you could say recruiting him for a while, and obviously Anquan Bolden said he didn't want to play for, he wanted to play only for a Florida team. That obviously didn't work out for him. The Buffalo Bills, extremely wide receiver needy, ended up signing him. So this story is concerning Cordy Glenn of the Buffalo Bills tackle. Let's get into this. This is important news. This is by Sam Robinson of Pro Football Rumors. All right, let's see if I can. All right, here we go. Cordy Glenn returned to Bills practice Sunday after a bout of ongoing foot trouble. And the sixth-year tackle said he would hopefully be ready to go week 1. Ankle and foot injuries have dogged Glenn's last season. He recently received a second opinion from a specialist in Charlotte. So Glenn should be ready for week 1. He's not going to miss a significant amount of time for the Buffalo Bills. All right, so let's move on to the New York Jets, which they actually were in the news for I guess all the wrong reasons, you could say. And we know all about this. So Quincy Enunwa suffers neck injury. He will miss the entirety of the 2017 season. So that's the biggest news to come out of Jets camp. We also have some Josh McCown news. Josh McCown all but certain to start week 1. Obviously, people are speculating whether Christian Hackenberg will get snaps or Bryce Petty. Looks like Josh McCown is going to be your starter for the entire 2017 season, which is a big head scratcher. Doesn't make any sense. So let's get into the third segment of the show. I think we did all the AFC East teams. So yeah, let's get into the third segment of the show, is which players you have to watch on Thursday. Okay, because there's a lot to unpack here. So obviously, but I would say a good amount of our starters are playing. But I think the most important player to watch on a Thursday night is going to be Raekwon McMillan. Obviously, this is the rookie sensation so far, and he continues his journey. And this is obviously a big step for him, playing his first NFL game. Obviously, it's a preseason game, but it's still a big deal. But Raekwon McMillan, he's shown flashes of greatness all offseason long. Obviously, if you've been, following this channel, we've been reporting everything that Raekwon McMillan has basically done, and the man has just been magnificent, obviously, since stepping the building at 20 years old and taking over the middle linebacker position. And he beat out Kiko Alonso and Lawrence Timmons, who are super talented players, and obviously have been doing it for a long time. And he earned the job. Nothing was given to him. So he continues his climb up. Obviously, he's proved throughout training camp and OTAs that he can cover on third down, which is huge. We're gonna be able to see that on Thursday. See some of those coverage skills. We're gonna see him, hopefully, obviously, he's going to help. Something that this defense has needed for many years is a quarterback on the defense, and I think we finally found that in Raekwon McMillan. So that's why it's such a big deal. I think we finally found the quarterback of our defense, and this is going to be his first NFL game. It's a no-brainer that if you're a Dolphins fan, you need to be watching number 52, because Raekwon McMillan is the future of this Miami Dolphins defense. And like I said before, this is something this Dolphins defense has needed for many years. Is a quarterback on this defense, getting everybody set in the right positions. That is the most underrated position in the NFL is middle linebacker. They are literally the quarterback of the defense. They get everybody where they're supposed to be. They're calling out. They're calling what the opponents, the opposition is doing, what the offense is doing. They're the ones supposed to be the most prepared. They're the ones, all that stuff. And middle linebacker, not only have we been severely injured at that position, we have not been able to stay healthy, but the talent that we've been putting out on the field has played unhealthy, like Koomisi, all those players. And Koomisi was playing out of position. And obviously, Raekwon has played it his entire life. So this should be, the Miami Dolphins should have finally found their middle linebacker for many years to come. So that is a huge, you guys have to, obviously, that is definitely something to watch on Thursday. Raekwon McMillan. Starting his first NFL game, and hopefully he continues. Hopefully we see him make some plays. Hopefully he gets a pick, maybe he gets a sack, because he's played great throughout training camp, and it's gonna be awesome to see that in a game scenario. And the next guy you guys have to watch is Leonte Carroo. Now, obviously the Dolphins traded up to get Leonte Carroo in the draft. We traded one of our third-round picks, future third-round picks, for Leonte Carroo. We ended up getting 2 third-round picks that year. Obviously, one of them was Kenyon, this one was Leonte. But Leonte obviously has been head and shoulders above the competition, or not competition, but he's been head and shoulders above anything he was before. Leonte Carroo looks like 100% a different player. Obviously, he lost a ton of weight. He was overweight last year. He didn't know the playbook. He just didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't ready. And obviously, Adam Gase came out and said this past press conference that he said, quote, he's light years ahead of light years ahead of where he was last year, which is great. He's playing faster. So he's somebody you guys definitely have to watch, because Leonte Crew, I've been a big believer in him since we drafted him out of Rutgers. He's a big-time player, in my opinion. I think, obviously his touchdown production in college is off the charts, and I think that's something that we should see of him this upcoming season. He's a physical receiver, and he wears down DBs. He's a great route runner. He's got great hands, and he can high point the football. So he's definitely somebody you guys need to watch. Hopefully we see flashes of Leonte Crew, because even in last year's preseason, we really didn't see him all that much. The next guy you guys have to watch is wide receiver Drew Morgan. This is a no-brainer. The undrafted free agent. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins have a long history of really good undrafted free agent receivers. In the last few years, recently, obviously, we had Wes Welker. Then we had Devon Best, who broke the single rookie yardage record for undrafted free agent receivers. So we've always had this good luck with undrafted free agent receivers. Obviously, the next one up, Drew Morgan, the undrafted free agent out of Arkansas, who has looked amazing throughout OTAs and even earned himself a backup role on the depth chart. Now, people, when you look at Drew Morgan, you think, oh, he's going to be a gunner, he's going to be a special teams player. He might not even make the football team. Now, this man is a legitimate weapon on this Miami Dolphins offense, which is saying something because of our receiver core. Our receiver core is probably the best in the NFL in terms of just complementing each other and just talent, obviously. But Drew Morgan is he's been amazing throughout OTAs and training camp, catching touchdowns left and right, continually making plays in training camp and OTAs, and he is something you guys have to watch in training camp. I mean, this is going to be amazing to see him play in a game-like scenario. Obviously, this is going to be his first NFL game, and hopefully he continues his high level of play throughout training camp. I can't wait to see Drew Morgan play against another football team. It's going to be awesome. I wouldn't be surprised if he caught himself a touchdown. The next guy you guys have to watch, who's probably coming off of his best training camp so far, best day as a Dolphin, is Jakeem Grant. And the interesting thing about Jakeem Grant is I think the Dolphins have tried to play him in the slot because of his size, and he's just not physical enough to play in the slot, and I think that's why we haven't seen him make plays in training camp and OTAs, is he's just not physical enough. He's too small. So, and he's not strong enough. And so the Dolphins put him on the outside, and the Dolphins put him on the outside in yesterday's training camp, and he absolutely balled out. He was a totally different player. He was able to use his quickness and speed. He was able to use his quickness and speed to his advantage, and he wasn't catching touchdowns over third string players. He was catching touchdowns over Tony Lippett, who's obviously coming off one of his best seasons as a pro. So Jakeem Grant is definitely somebody you have to watch on special teams and on the offense, because he looks really good on the outside. I think we need to keep him on the outside. I just don't think he fits in the slot. So it's going to be interesting to see Jakeem Grant coming off his strongest day of practice, what he does against the Atlanta Falcons. That is definitely something you guys have to circle. The next guy you guys have to watch. There's a lot of there's a lot of exciting players this year for the Miami Dolphins. Is Kenyon Drake. Obviously, Kenyon Drake has played well in J.J.'s absence. The Dolphins have been extremely impressed with him and his how much he's improved from year 1 to year 2. He's definitely somebody you have to watch in preseason. Hopefully we see some of his receiving skills like we did in last year's preseason. I really want to see that of Kenyon Drake. That's definitely something I want to see of him. Definitely want to see him run between the tackles a little bit more successfully than he did last year. It'd be a little bit more consistent. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a big game at Hard Rock Stadium in front of the home crowd, obviously, against the Atlanta Falcons. But he's definitely somebody we have to watch, because I do want to see I want to see a different player from year 1 to year 2, because Kenyon Drake he's supremely talented. And then obviously Matt Moore. I want to see what Matt Moore does Thursday. I think Matt Moore, I'm not going to say I'm sure it was disappointing for him, but Matt Moore, he's been he's been a super talented quarterback throughout his career. He's not been some scrub. He's not been Brock Osweiler, for God's sakes. I mean, he's 1,000 times better than Brock Osweiler. There's some NFL team. The Jaguars would love to have Matt Moore as their quarterback right now, and that's no disrespect to Blake Bortles, but I think Matt Moore is a better quarterback. Like Matt Moore he is capable of winning you football games. Obviously, Matt Moore has problems. He stares down receivers too much. But it's going to be interesting to see how Matt Moore bounces back on Thursday's game. I'm not surprised if he carves it up. I would not be surprised at all. Some other players to watch. Obviously, one of the biggest headlines heading into the Thursday game is who's going to replace Ted Larson. Obviously, Ted Larson's injury was overshadowed by the fact that Ryan Tannehill was injured. That was a huge hit to the offensive line. So, because he was the clear-cut guy, and it's going to be interesting to see who steps up and tries to take over that spot. You got Jake Brendel, you got Ted Larson. Or not Ted Larson, excuse me. You got Jake Brendel, you got Isaac Asiata. I can't wait to see what Isaac does. Obviously, he's a prospect, so he could play really, really, really good, or he could be, he could not play well at all. But I'm really interested to see what Isaac Asiata does. The same thing with Jake Brendel. Anthony Steen's another candidate for that guard spot, even though I think we'll see if he plays, how much of guard he plays in preseason. He might play some more center than he does guard. We'll see. But yeah, Isaac Asiata is definitely somebody you guys have to circle. And probably the biggest name of Thursday and making his debut would be obviously Charles Harris. I mean, Charles Harris has had a great OTAs. He's had a great training camp. The people he's impressed has been, I'm telling you guys right now, I don't think we've had two players in the first round and second round look this good throughout the first few months as Raekwon and Charles have. They've looked amazing, and I can't wait to see what he does in his first NFL game, his first NFL scenario. Game-like atmosphere. It's going to be interesting. Obviously, he's looked amazing. He looked explosive. He's given our tackles fits. He's given Laramie Tunsil and Juwan James, who are especially Juwan and Laramie, they have looked amazing throughout training camp. Obviously, William Hayes said they have a chance to be the best tackle combo in the NFL, and they're that talented. And the fact that Charles Harris has had success against them is amazing. So Charles Harris is an obvious one that you guys have to circle and watch. And some other ones, obviously Cordrea, Tony, Xavier. It's gonna be interesting to see how they play, especially Xavier. I'm really interested to see how he plays. Obviously, I'm not gonna say hype, but a lot is going into this into this game. A lot of momentum has been carried into this game. He's looked like a bona fide shutdown cornerback, and he's not gonna be going against any high competition. Obviously, Julio and Tyler Gabriel, they're not gonna play, but they're officially ruled out for that game. But it's gonna be interesting to see how Xavier Howard looks. Maybe he makes some plays on the football, and obviously, Tony Lippett. He's looked amazing. Coming off a 4 interception season, he's had a great offseason. See what he does in this preseason game. The young secondary in general is going to be fun to watch, but those two especially, Tony and Xavier, and see where they are at this, especially Tony's third year, and Xavier's going into his second. So it's going to be really fun. All of those guys are going to be fun. So let's get into the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A. This first question comes from Brandon. He says, J&J doesn't really have to play in the preseason, does he? Yeah, you definitely want your running back to at least get one game in. You got to acclimate to that competition, the high level of competition. Especially since he hasn't practiced in a while. So yeah, he doesn't have to play, but you would definitely like him to play. I would not be surprised if he played on Thursday. You don't want to go into the season, and your first NFL action against another NFL team is week 1 of the regular season. You don't want to do that. You want to get warmed up before you get thrown into the fire there. So Gamer. Excuse me. This next question comes from Gamer_Rific. He says, Do you think Jay will retire this year? Everyone says Jay and Gase have a big bond. Also, what is your prediction of next year's quarterback? So, do I think Jay is going to retire? There's so many things going into that. I think I don't know. Depending on how he performs, to be honest with you. If Jay goes out there and has an MVP season, then I think he's definitely going to be a Dolphin for a lot longer than we thought he was going to be. He's only 34, so if he has an MVP season, we have a ton of success, we win a bunch of games, then I wouldn't be surprised if obviously the Dolphins kept him. But if that doesn't happen, and let's just say he has a good year or an okay year, then yeah, I think the Dolphins would what they would do. I see people saying, "Oh, is Tannehill going to be the quarterback next?" Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be the quarterback. If Jay doesn't work out, then they're definitely going to stick with Tannehill. I honestly do believe that. People talk about the relationship between Jay and Adam. The relationship between Tannehill and Adam it is super strong. It is a super strong relationship. They They have a really, really good relationship, and I would not be surprised if Tannehill was the quarterback next year. I would say that was the most possible thing would be Tannehill would be the quarterback next year. And we still don't even know if he's gonna have ACL surgery yet, which is weird. So we'll see. That's a tough question to answer. Who really knows? I mean, obviously there's a ton of things going in that, but if I had to guess, I would assume Tannehill would be the quarterback for next season. This next question comes from this is Patrick. He says, if Drew Morgan balls out at the slot receiver, do you think Gase wouldn't re-sign Jarvis? No, Jarvis is more than a slot receiver. He's a weapon. He's a playmaker. He's one of the best receivers in the league. So no, I don't think even if Drew Morgan had a great season that they would do that. No. Brandon, he's still considered the best receiver on the Dolphins. He's what you know what I'm saying? Like, even with Devontae Parker having, well, I don't know. Jarvis is just the best receiver right now on the Dolphins. As of right now, Jarvis is the best. Brandon says, just what if Jay Cutler takes us to the AFC Championship game? So what if Jay Cutler? Well, then that would be amazing. That would be amazing if he did that. Then if Jay did that, then yeah, Jay's gonna be a Dolphin for more than 1 year. Let's see here. This next question comes from Will. He says, in Gase we trust more than ever, don't you think? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If Adam Gase has faith in somebody to that extent, to that level, like an overwhelming faith, when Jay Cutler retired, they asked him, what does he think of Jay Cutler and all this other stuff? Should an NFL team give him a chance? He literally called him a franchise quarterback, for God's sakes. So that's how much faith he had, and that's before he was a Dolphin. That's how much faith he has in Jay Cutler. And again, Adam Gase, in Jay Cutler's words, and every quarterback who's ever played for Adam, he has an uncanny knack for calling football games. He's probably the best at it in the NFL in terms of calling plays, and that's what makes him. That's one of the reasons that he's such a special coach. This question comes from G Delva, 2003. He says, I said this earlier in another video, but I'll say it again. The NFL is obviously sidelining Ryan Tannehill because they don't want him to succeed. They knew he was advanced along the years, which is why his knee surgery was not done. I don't mind Ryan Tannehill sitting out for a few weeks, but hiring Jay Cutler to be the star quarterback will boost NFL ratings. I hope Ryan Tannehill will come back next season and play for Miami. I don't think there's a large conspiracy theory there, but I think you don't have to worry about Tannehill. I think Tannehill's definitely. I think that's the most likely scenario is Tannehill coming back next year. This next question comes from this is Patrick. He says, how is Matt Moore going to take the signing of Jay Cutler? I answered this to the fan Q&A. I think there's an update on that. He's taking it pretty. I mean, Adam let the team know way before he let anybody else know that that's what he was going to do, is go after Jay Cutler. Now, other coaches don't do that, which, there's a long list of players getting disrespected in that way. Obviously, the most recent one, and the most egregious one probably, is when Shady McCoy was traded to the Bills and how that situation was handled. It was handled terribly. He literally found out from, I think, a Twitter or something like that. Nobody let him know. They just did it. Like, that's how some coaches treat their players. They kind of, to be honest with you, they treat them like just like crapping chess pieces, for God's sakes. That's not Adam. Obviously, he's well aware. He's a great coach. I think Matt Moore has taken it pretty well. I think Matt Moore's used to this at this point, and he's going to go out there and compete. And I wouldn't be surprised if he balled out on Thursday. All right. Excuse me. This question comes from Unity182. He says, do you think... yeah, okay, I answered that question in the fan Q&A. Ronald says, this question comes from Ronald. He says, Jake Brendel looks like a stud. You offensive lineman, do you think he has enough to get a look with starting at preseason game to him versus better competition? Yeah, he's definitely getting a lot of playing time. I don't think he's gonna. He might start against the Falcons. I wouldn't be surprised if he did, but he's looked really good. You're right. He's looked really good this offseason, which has been a blessing because of the injury to Ted Larson. Another guy I forgot you guys have to watch is obviously Isaac Asiata. Obviously, he's got big shoes to fill. I want him to play up to his potential. Obviously, he's a prospect, so I'm not expecting much, but that is definitely somebody else you guys have to watch. Ronald says, this next question comes from Ronald. He says, how do you classify this draft class with Charles Harris, Raekwon McMillan, Devon, and Vincent Taylor all poised to start? Ford was pushing until his surgery and the undrafted guys. I know we liked this group, but we didn't know that they would do this all the way to round 7. So far, it's been great. I don't think Isaiah Ford. I think he was disappointing. He really wasn't pushing for the starting. I mean, Drew Morgan was playing better than he was, so he wasn't really pushing anybody. So yeah, and then Devon and I would expect actually Jordan Phillips to still start. In the depth chart, he's still the starter next to Sue. So I think so far this class has been amazing. It's been amazing. That's how I'll classify it. Bad Bandit says, do you think the Dolphins has made the right decision signing Cutler instead of Cap? Yes. I think when I did the Ryan Tannehill situation thing, and we discussed this, there was reasons. I think it's such a weird scenario. I think Colin Kaepernick, when you look in depth to it, if he signed, he's not going to start week 1. Matt Moore is going to start week 1. There's nothing wrong with Matt Moore starting week 1, but I don't think he would ever have saw the playing field until maybe week 10. So even if Colin Kaepernick was signed, it's not like he's coming in and starting. Jay Cutler, on the other hand, this is why I think he's the better fit. As of right now, I've changed my mind completely on this whole situation. This is how, and that's not because we signed Jay Cutler. That's just because it's when you look at the reasons why. So Jay Cutler, obviously, he knows the playbook. This is technically his 3rd season in this offense. The Chicago Bears kept the same offense last year, but obviously the people who are calling the plays are nowhere near as good as Adam Gase. And he knows this playbook like the back of his hand. Obviously, we've changed some of the terminology, which is just how you call the plays. It's not inaudible and stuff like that. It's nothing serious. You can learn that in like a week. So, I think Jay Cutler, his talent level is underrated. Obviously, his feel for the game of football. Like, people don't understand. Okay, forget his arm talent, because he is obviously that's the thing that keeps getting tossed out there. His arm talent is arm talent is arm talent. His ability to make plays when the pocket collapses is uncanny. His movement within the pocket, his pocket presence, his feel for the game of football is amazing. It's some of the best. It was definitely in the top 10 in quarterbacks. Like, he can make something when things break down. Even if he's throwing across his body and he's throwing it across the field and it gets picked off. When a defender has him dead to rights, it's hard to sack him. Even when Sue said it when they asked about Jay Cutler. That's one of the hardest things. He's hard to bring down because of that. He's got such a great feel for the game of football. And he's a playmaker. So that's why, and he's a really good excuse me, I hit the mic. He's a really good red zone quarterback as well. We went through some of the stats in the Jay Cutler video. But another stat to bring up is I'm about to make an argument against Colin. See, we got all the time in the world. So the argument, I made an argument for Colin Kaepernick before. I'm not just hating on Kaepernick because Jay Cutler is the quarterback now. But here, I'm going to give you guys this stat. So when Jay Cutler first got to Chicago, his first few years before Brian Urlacher retired, he went 27-10 as a starter. Now that is amazing. Obviously, that's really good. That's a franchise quarterback, top 5 quarterback. That is amazing record for a starter quarterback. Obviously, that's well over 500. That's when he actually had a good defense, and his offense wasn't very talented. His offense was actually not that talented at all, and they still went 27-10. And Lovie Smith, and trust me, the offense that they were running with Jay, I was watching a lot of Jay Cutler. The offense that they ran with Jay early on was terrible. It wasn't imaginative at all. It was pretty crap and basic stuff. And it was not. It did not tailor well to Jay Cutler's strengths. And they still went 27-10. He made the best out of it. Obviously, he won some overtime games against. He won some big games basically, and then he took him to the NFC Championship. So then obviously the Bears of old, when Jay Cutler got there, they almost made a run at it to get to the Super Bowl. Obviously, he didn't play in the NFC Championship game, or maybe we were talking about a totally different Super Bowl right now, because that team was really good, but they lost their starting quarterback, who was having a great year. And he could have went to the Super Bowl, because that team was really good. So they lose all of those players. And and just a totally different team. Totally different team. Their defense goes from one of the best in the league to ranking 30th in the NFL in total defense, and the team around him just fell apart. And I'm not saying this. It's just a weird it's a double standard in the NFL, where we see players like Drew Brees, right? Drew Brees is a great quarterback. He's obviously Super Bowl champion. I'm not comparing him to Jay Cutler at all, but he doesn't have a team around him. People forget that football is a team game. It's not an eye game. You cannot individually win games. You just can't. Drew Brees right now, in the last 6 years, has done nothing basically. 5 to 6 years. He's not had a good record. The Carolina Panthers and the Falcons have dominated that division, especially the Panthers. Why? It's not Drew Brees' fault. He's still putting up MVP numbers. It's because his team sucked. His team's terrible. His defense sucks. They can't play defense on anybody. They're putting up great numbers. They're putting up great offensive numbers. His offense is good. The talent around Drew Brees' offense has been pretty dang stellar throughout these few years, but their defense, they just couldn't get their defense together. In Jay Cutler's situation, there was no talent on the offense. When you look at Drew Brees' talent over the last 6 years, he's had people like Kenny Stills, he's had people like Jimmy Graham. Jimmy, for a little bit, not over the last 6 years, but he did have Jimmy Graham. Let's take Jimmy Graham out of it. That's unfair. So Kenny Stills, Michael Thomas, who he just got, Brandon Cooks, who's been there for a few years, and then obviously traded to the Patriots. They've had weapons down there in New Orleans. He hasn't had anybody in Chicago like that. So not only was his offense poorly built, so was the defense was poorly built. It was built on veterans. Obviously, it wasn't his fault that his team fell apart around him. You can't expect Jay Cutler. I don't know what the Bears thought, that Jay Cutler was just gonna carry them to the play. I don't know what they thought, but that team was poorly built. And same thing with Drew Brees. That's what he's experiencing. You can't win games by yourself. You just can't do it in the NFL. So that would be the argument against Jay Cutler. Not against Jay Cutler, for Jay Cutler. And again, it would be easy to take. You could obviously make an argument against Jay Cutler. But again, I'm not comparing him to Drew Brees. I'm just saying there's a quarterback at Drew Brees' level who still can't win games because he has a team around him that's not very good. That's not his fault. So that would be the argument for Jay Cutler. And we gotta hurry this up. But this is something I've had this argument before about Colin Kaepernick. This is the argument against Colin Kaepernick, and I don't hear anybody bringing this up right now. This is a valid point, I think. Maybe it's not. I guess this is just my opinion. But when I always get Jim and John mixed up. I'm pretty sure it's Jim. When Jim took over the 49ers. Obviously, they built a fantastic football team. With their defense was an all-time great defense. With seriously the talent level, the Hall of Fame caliber talent on that team is amazing. Patrick Willis, always call him P. Willie because I'm, retarded. Navarro Bowman, 2 All-Pro starting line. Seriously, 2 first-team All-Pro starting middle linebackers in the NFL. That's not even a joke right now. Carlos Rogers at the top of his game. People forget how good Carlos Rogers was. Dante Whitner, whatever you want to call him. At the peak of his game, okay, which he was a great safety. People forget about that. Alden Smith, Alden Smith at the time was a beast. He was getting 16 sacks a year. Justin Smith was obviously amazing. McDonald at defensive tackle, and then their defense was just stacked. Ahmad Brooks in his prime. I mean, that defense was an all-time great defense. Chris Culver in his crapping prime. Chris Culver was a really good player in his heyday. He had a short prime, but he had one. And then the offense, that offensive line was built to run the football. I mean, that team grinded games out. They had Frank Gore, who's a Hall of Famer. Obviously, Michael Crabtree, who's a really good player. Vernon Davis. That offensive line was amazing. And they just leaned on the running game, similar to what Seattle did to win their championships. Seattle basically copied the 49ers. So that's how good that team was. And then Colin Kaepernick obviously took over. He had an all-time great underachieving football team. Now, was it Colin Kaepernick's fault? Who knows whose fault it was? But he had an amazing football team. An all-time great 49ers team. And he still couldn't win the championship. If you compare that Baltimore Ravens football team against the 49ers football team in that Super Bowl, it's not even close to who's the more talented football team. That's not even close. It is the San Francisco 49ers. It's not even close. In the start of that game, the Ravens were kicking their tail. They're kicking the 49ers' tail. Colin Kaepernick did not have a good game. He had a terrible start to that football game. He started to catch fire at the end. But Colin Kaepernick had a great football team, and he did nothing with it. It wasn't like Colin Kaepernick brought that team to the Super Bowl. No, that football team brought Colin Kaepernick to the Super Bowl. If Alex Smith was on that football team, it would have been the same crapping results. They would have went to the championship. Anyway, obviously they beat the Packers in the NFC Championship to get there. Anyway, so that would be my argument against Colin Kaepernick. He's had great football teams, and I mean, he couldn't win the big one. And he had an all-time great 49ers team. Obviously, they could have got back to the Super Bowl the following year, and then he throws an interception, which wasn't a great play by Richard Sherman. It's not Colin Kaepernick's fault, but that was a great pick by Richard Sherman. He did not have a good game in that game either. He threw a bunch of picks. That defense kept him in that game as well. If Navarro Bowman didn't break his leg in the middle of that football game, maybe they would have won it. But that would be the argument against Colin Kaepernick. He had an all-time great 49ers team, and he could not win a ring with it. I think, seriously, if we plug... obviously, Drew Brees is a 1,000 times better quarterback. Maybe if we put Joe Flacco on the 49ers, they win that Super Bowl. And we put Colin Kaepernick on the Baltimore Ravens, which I think those two are even in talent and skill, then they would have won that Super Bowl. So that would be the argument against Colin Kaepernick. He had an all-time great 49ers team, and still, when you look at his numbers, especially with passing, they're not impressive at all. And Colin Kaepernick is never... Another thing we gotta keep going here because we gotta get back to the fan Q&A. But another point to bring up is Colin Kaepernick has never had a football team, never had to carry a football team on his shoulders. He's never had to do it until last year, and he went 3 and whatever because his team sucked. Again, I'm not saying, but he's never had to carry a football team on his shoulders. Jay Cutler, that's what the Bears thought he could do, and that team was so bad, obviously he couldn't do it. But he's never had to carry a team on his shoulders. When he was successful, that team carried him. That team was already a successful football team before he started. Alex Smith brought them to the NFC Championship game before Colin Kaepernick ever took the field. That team was amazing. It was super talented. So, yeah, nobody ever brings that up about Colin Kaepernick. Everybody's like, oh, he's this winner. He's this proven player. And I did, too. When I was making the argument for Colin Kaepernick, I'm accused of it, too. But you could also say that team was amazing before he ever got there, and that team is the one that won them all that games, not Colin Kaepernick. And anytime you look at Colin Kaepernick's numbers, they are pedestrian at best, especially in the NFL these days, where you can throw for 50,000 yards if you're crapping Blaine Gabbert. All right, so let's move on from that. Again, you can make an argument for or against both players. I'm telling you, we need to get a guest on this show so we can have this argument. Get another opinion on this. This next question comes from Bandit. He says, Skaggs, if you could pick up a quarterback in the next upcoming draft, I answer this question. It would definitely, if I had to choose from the group, it would definitely be Sam Darnold. Let's see here. Ronald says David Carr and the former Michael Robinson, of the former fullback for the Seattle Seahawks, said if Jay Cutler does well, that could spell the end for Ryan Tannehill, especially with his money hit the next few years. Do you agree that it could be the end of Ryan Tannehill in Miami? I want to say no, but it could be the competition Adam has wanted all along, and the cream we finally see risen to the top. I don't know what the competition. I don't think Adam. I mean, obviously Adam wants competition, but I don't think he ever wanted to bring in somebody like Jay Cutler. I think Matt Moore is enough. People forget how good Matt Moore is. Anyway, let's see here. Do I think the end of Ryan Tannehill, especially with it? See, Ryan Tannehill, especially how the cap's risen and how quarterbacks are getting paid now, we're getting Ryan for cheap now. Right now, Ryan's cheap. So, I disagree with that. I think Ryan's definitely on the cheaper end of quarterbacks, especially now with, Captain. I think Mike Glennon's getting paid more than Tannehill is. Let's see here. If Jay Cutler does well, can that spell the end? Depending on the level of success of Jay Cutler. If Jay Cutler brings us to the playoffs and we go deep into the playoffs, then yeah, I think he's definitely going to be the Dolphins quarterback for... Again, depending on how good Jay Cutler is. Let's see. Upper echelon. I'm sorry, I'm not mad at you. I'm hyped up, Ronald, over the Kaepernick situation. I'm not mad at you or anything. My tone was a little aggressive there. Let's see here. This question comes from Delva. He says, will Ryan Tannehill be able to play the starting quarterback for the Dolphins again after healing from the injury? Again, yes, I think he will. Depending on Jay Cutler. If Jay Cutler has an MVP season, probably not. And he has to win games. He can't just have great stats. So this comes from Sports Network. Even though it's probably obvious to most Dolphins fans, what do you think Ryan Tannehill's future with the Dolphins will be? Again, I think he's going to be a Dolphin unless Jay Cutler wins a ton of games and plays well. After seeing that the Dolphins signed Cutler, what are your expectations for the Dolphins, and do you think we will make the playoffs again? Also, congrats on 1,000 subs. Thank you, D'Anthony. I appreciate that. Do I think, where am I? Yeah, I think the team, again, a quarterback can bring a team down, but not by that much. If your team's truly good enough to be a playoff team, then you're going to still have success in the NFL. I think our team is more talented. I think it's more talented than a wild card team. I think our team is definitely talented enough to make the playoffs, and I think Jay Cutler should have a great year with the supporting cast around him. Absolutely, is so reliant on his legs that I don't know if he's going to be able to have that success in the NFL that he had in college. So those are some question marks I have for Lamar Jackson. This next question comes from Liam Conrad. He says, do you think we overpaid Jay Cutler? No, I do not think we overpaid for Jay Cutler. I think we actually... I was super surprised of how cheap we got him for. I don't think we overpaid for him, depending on what you're... I don't think we overpaid for him. I thought we were actually going to give him more than... some reports suggested that we're going to give him more than we gave him. So I thought we gave him... I was actually surprised at the price that we got him for. Next question comes from Liam Conrad. He says, do you think the Dolphins got better or worse to Jay Cutler? That's depending on how you look at it, I guess. Don't think we got worse, though. Liam Conrad says, do you think Devon Gottschalk can take over for Jordan Phillips? Yes, Jordan Phillips is still listed as the number 1 DT, but I would not be surprised if the Miami Dolphins made some moves before the season started. Jared Dickerson says, is Jay Cutler a better overall quarterback than Tannehill? That's a tough question to answer. If you asked me, is Tannehill better than Cutler, I would say Tannehill is better than Cutler for a lot of different reasons. But I think Jay Cutler, within Adam Gase's offense, is a franchise quarterback. And I think he's more than capable of being a franchise. Again, when he had a good team surrounding him, he was 27-10. That's Hall of Fame caliber numbers right there, and that's not an exaggeration. If you can be that good and win that many games at that kind of a clip, then you're going to go into the Hall of Fame. He's the best Bears quarterback in their history, and again, that's not saying a lot. Obviously, they don't have the greatest history with their quarterbacks, especially in the Super Bowl era, but Jay Cutler when he had a team around him, he was balling. And I think he's got a team here. I think this is probably his best team in terms of, especially on offense. This is by far his best team on offense he's ever had. And we obviously have, I think, a much improved defense. So many talented players on that side of the football. And again, Tannehill, I'm not gonna say one's better than the. I don't know. I think depending on what you want in a quarterback, it's just depending on what you want in a quarterback. I think Tannehill has done a better job of carrying a franchise on his shoulders than Jay Cutler did. So I think when things were bad, Tannehill played better. That's what I'll say. When things were not going well, Tannehill played at a higher level. Liam Conrad says, do you think we should pick up anybody else off of free agency? I wouldn't be surprised if Sheldon Richardson, if the Dolphins traded for him. I wouldn't be surprised if, obviously with the Jay Cutler signing, that makes it a little bit harder, but apparently the rumor is that Sheldon had to take a pay cut to get traded, so I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. And obviously, I think the Dolphins are in the market for a guard as well. Liam Conrad says, "Do you think the Bills are running to the second seat in the division now that the franchise with Troy Rex Ryan is gone?" Liam, I actually like Rex Ryan a lot. If I would have no problem with him head coaching my football team. I just would not let him choose the play. I wouldn't let him have that big of an influence on who drafting. Now, obviously, I would take into his input, but whether he had too much control or not is I don't think he had that level of control in Buffalo, but I don't think Rex Ryan is a franchise destroyer. He actually had a respectable record in Buffalo. He was not bad. He was not a bad head coach by any stretch of the imagination in Buffalo. And I think that team got worse without him because his ability to call games on the defensive side of the football, it rivals his dad's. Buddy was fantastic at that. And Rex was also fan. His scheme was amazing. Liam Conrad says, what's going on with Isaac Asiata? He's just not. He's a prospect. It's going to take some time. Hopefully we see improvement in the preseason. Will says, what's your favorite Dolphins team you've watched? Oh my God. Oh, that's a tough question. I just love the Dolphins. We got to keep going because we're not running. We're not running out of time. Technically running out of time, but that's a tough question that I have to marinate on. Todd Jean says, what is the coaching staff? What is it that the coaching staff doesn't believe in Matt Moore? I don't think they don't believe in Matt Moore. Because even if we went out and I think we would have got somebody who's going to back Matt Moore up. Obviously, David Phillips is not going to be Matt Moore's backup. I don't think it's the coaching staff doesn't believe in him, but I think Jay Cutler was just too good of an option to pass up. Again, people forget. I'm going to bring up the record thing again. When he had a good team, he was 27-10. You can't ignore that as a GM. When you see that the guy had that level of success, especially with Adam, and combine that, he had that level of success. He went to an NFC Championship game with a good team around him. Then you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that. Will says, what's your pick for the best Dolphins defense in the past 7 years? Oh, my God. Oh, man. The past 7 years. I'm trying to think of stats right now. 2012, our run defense was significantly better than it was in 2013. Was 2012 the last year of Carlos Dansby, too? I don't know. That's a tough question. I would say if you were counting the 2008 defense, that would be the best defense in the last how many ever years. That team was obviously probably the big reason why we made the playoffs was that defense with Joey Porter, and they get 17, 18 sacks on the season, and obviously Jason. Not Jason. Hang on, I'm trying to think. I'm skipping on names right now, but Crowder, Jeremiah Bell, our veteran corners. I mean, we had a lot of playmakers on that defense. That defense was solid as a collective group. Okay, so let's move on. Will says, besides staying healthy, what's the one big thing our defense needs to do to be good/elite? Stop the run. You got to stop the run. In the middle of the football field, in terms of coverage, has to be better. We have to guard tight ends at a better clip. Getting lined up at a faster rate was a problem last year, and that's something that I think Raekwon McMillan is going to fix. Will says, Cameron Wake or Jason Taylor, which is your personal favorite? Jesus, God, Will, you're hitting me with these nostalgic questions. Jason Taylor. I mean, he's top 10 all time in sacks. He's one of the best Dolphins in NFL history. He's one of the best Dolphins in history. He's one of the best pass rushers in NFL history. So I'm gonna go with Jason Taylor. Cameron Wake is a close second, though, man. Gamerific says, what do you think about Raekwon McMillan? I am a big fan of you. And road to 2K. Everybody that sees this, go subscribe. I appreciate you. What do you think of I love Raekwon McMillan. I'm a huge believer in Raekwon McMillan. Dwight Keller Williams says, does the mainstream media have fire? Why does the mainstream media have fire hydrant diarrhea out of their mouth when they talk about Jay Cutler? The perception of Jay Cutler is so weird. I can't explain. I don't have an explanation for it. I just don't. I don't know what Jay Cutler did. Maybe, obviously Disney owns ESPN. Maybe Jay Cutler has a bad history with Disney, and ever since then they've just... Somebody come up with a conspiracy. David will come up with one. David, answer the question for the community. Why does the media spray diarrhea every time they talk about Jay Cutler? Will says, do you think Jay Cutler would be a potential upgrade only in terms of production from the quarterback position, since Tannehill's role was merely to complement the offense, according to Gase himself? I don't know about the compliment. I've never heard Adam say that, because before Ryan got hurt, he said Tannehill's going to be a beast this season, which just makes the injury hurt even more. The whole Tannehill versus Cutler thing, I hate that. Let's just look at Jay Cutler and what he can do for this team. How's that? Let's not pit those two against each other. I think Jay Cutler, can throw again. I think he has I think the talent around him and the talent that Jay Cutler possesses. People forget this man is accurate, guys. He just makes stupid decisions sometimes because he has that arm. And Brett Favre did the same thing. Matt Moore did the same thing. And I'm not comparing Jay Cutler to Matt Moore or Brett Favre. I'm saying that they do the same thing. They have big arms. They're gunslingers. They take chances. And sometimes that gets them in trouble, and sometimes it doesn't. And when Adam Gase was with Jay Cutler, he controlled that, and he made him more efficient and more disciplined. The highlight God says Colin Kaepernick or Jay Cutler. I think, again, I think I've completely changed my mind on the whole thing. I think Jay Cutler was the better decision, and not just because he's a Dolphin now. I swear to God, if we signed Tim Tebow, I would have went off on the Dolphins. Trust me. If we made the bad decision, I would have talked about it. Ronald says how I would go with Matt Moore as the starter. Who knows? Maybe Cutler is here to back up Moore. What do you think, Skaggs? No, I think Cutler's going to start, but I you know what? I would not be surprised if Matt goes out there and balls out. That it's going to make it a tough. I don't know, because I can't wait to see what Cutler does. Cutler had a great first day as a Dolphin. Obviously, 3 for 2 touchdowns. And him and Jarvis, dude, I can't wait to see Jay Cutler with the offense that he has. That's all I'm going to say about that. It's going to be fun to watch. Sean Jacobson says, could this potentially, and again, people forget he's got Jay Ajayi running the football, so it's not all on Jay Cutler. Jay is a crap Pro Bowl caliber running back. He's a superstar, and the people behind him are also very capable. Kenyon Drake, Damian Williams. Sean Jacobson says, could this potentially affect? No, it will not affect Jay Cutler. It will not affect Devontae Parker. Veronica says, what is your new Dolphins win-loss record? I've never predicted their win-loss record, Veronica. It's a thing that I do not do. Francisco Santana says, White Color, I get they've ran a successful duel, but how much older now? And he got his job taken. Cutler did not get his job taken. He was just banged up. Cap seemed more suitable being young, coachable, and threw 16-4 last year, even if not capped $10 million for retired Cutler, when we have big contracts to worry about. Not a fan, but always a Dolphins fan. So Cap seemed more suitable. Cap did not seem more suitable. I'm sick of people saying that. Cap, even when I said Cap, I was for Cap in that quarterback situation video. No, Cap is not more suitable because Jay Cutler. First of all, he would have been a backup at week 1. God only knows how long he would have been on the bench. But Cutler was the better decision because he's been in this offense for 3 years now. Even when Adam Gase left, they liked the offense so much that they kept the offense. But again, he wasn't calling the plays, and obviously Cutler didn't play last year, the 2016 season, because of obviously he tore his labrum, which people forget. That's the same injury that Andrew Luck and Cam Newton suffered. So he didn't play last year because of injuries, not because of his performance. Okay. Sean Jacobson says, do you see a bright future with Miami this upcoming season, or do you see a huge digression now that Tannehill is out? Do we have a chance at the playoffs? Okay, so Jay Cutler, it's not like we signed Brock Osweiler, guys. He's not bringing the team down, trust me. And for all, we've talked about Cutler enough this podcast. So all of those reasons that I've said so far, no, I do not think so. I think our team's still a playoff talented team. We are a scary good team, guys. No, this is Patrick says, even though I am very happy we signed Jay, what does this mean for Juice's contract, if anything? That's a great question, man. I don't know. I don't think it affects it that much in the long term, because we'll see what happens after the season. But if things come worse to worse, I think we'll use the franchise tag on Juice. Ian Good says, Jay Cutler, I have so many questions. Mainly though, will he lead us to the playoffs? I don't predict things. I can't tell you, man. I mean, I could tell you if I predicted things, but I just don't. I'm a weirdo when it comes to that kind of stuff. Antoine Jackson says, do you think Cutler can help Juice Landry to be a 10-plus touchdown wideout? I think whoever was going to be the quarterback this year, I think Juice has he's worked on that part of his game of getting into the end zone more, working on some of those routes in the end zone. He's worked on getting off press coverage, which is what you see a lot in the red zone. Corners are a little bit more physical with you. I think you're going to see improvement from Jarvis in that area of the field. D-Max says, do you see Jakeem Grant not making No, I think Jakeem's making it now, man. How he's done, I think he's making it now, especially after the practice he had. D-Max says, do you think we are in a good place with the DTs that we have on the roster? Yes. Yes, I would say we are in a good place, definitely for the future. Right now, we have to have Jordan Phillips step up, and Devon's had a great training camp, so hopefully he steps up as well. Dolphins for life. So, do you think we can still make it the playoffs without Tannehill out? We are still a playoff team, guys. Just because we're still talented enough. We are way more talented than a wild card team. I believe that. I truly believe that. I think our team is talented. You know what I'm saying. Jin says, do you think the Dolphins are waiting for the salary cap to go up next year to pay Juice? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I really don't know. That could be that could be a reason. Jaden Alexander says, if you had to choose, who would you rather the Dolphins pick up, Cutler or Kaepernick for the quarterback job? I'm not joking with you guys. I take this channel seriously, and I'm not over here to spout ignorant opinions. I try to be as prepared as I possibly can, and I watched a lot of Cutler and I watched a lot of Kaepernick. And then I made the Jay Cutler situation video. That's when I fully watched a ton of it. And after taking in everything and considering all the things, I actually was leaning towards more Cutler after watching all that tape. I swear, guys. I actually thought, after I watched Cutler's tape, because I watched Kaepernick's first, after I watched Cutler's, I was like, I think Cutler's the more talented and better fit for the Dolphins. The Gamer12345 says, besides Miami, who do you think will have the best shot beating New England for the AFC Championship? We are, guys. We got the best shots. Stefan says, appreciate you giving so much attention to my question last week on our rushing attack, being so similar to the 72 Dolphins. So this week's question is, with Tannehill going down with the leg injury, our experienced backup quarterback taking the helm, do you think we can make a run at the rushing record? Also note, our injured quarterback came back for the AFC Championship game against the Steelers and then completed the perfect season. How sweet would a repeat be? I'm telling you, we've had great crapping success with that kind of great history with backup quarterbacks, not just Earl Morrall, many others as well. I'm sure David, he's been a long time Dolphin. He can list everybody. Cause we gotta keep going here. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Ultra Shock One, who will start for the Dolphins this season? Who will start? Jay Cutler, if that's what you're asking. 1, 2, 3. Gamer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who's your top 5 options for the quarterback during the 2018 draft? Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold. The Rosen kid from UCLA. That's 4, right? 5 is a mixture between I don't like the Rudolph guy. Baker Mayfield, I like actually more, so I'll say Baker Mayfield. J.C. Bryant, what positional group on the football team has the most depth? Receiver and running back, probably. What second-year player will have a breakout season? Oh, God. Leonte Crew, I'm just going to say, or Kenyon, doesn't matter. J.C. Bryant, what is the toughest game of the year besides the Patriots? The toughest. Probably the most important / toughest, I guess. The Bills on the road towards the end of the year. J.C. Bryant, do you believe Adam Gase should be given the... No, I don't... I don't think... See, I just had a seizure right there. I don't think Adam Gase should be given full control of the football. I've talked about this, but that's a lengthy conversation. We have to keep going here. I want to get all these questions in. Let's see here. The Gamer 1, 2, 3, 5. If Tannehill needs surgery, then is it time to move on for him? No. The Gamer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Predicted color stats for 2017. I think he can. I don't predict things, but 30 touchdowns would not be a surprise to me. J.C. Bryant, name 3 reasons why it will be easy to beat the Bucs in Week 1. Not going to do that. J.C. Bryant, who do you compare Raekwon to in the NFL right now? C.J. Mosley. He reminds me a lot of C.J. Mosley. J.C. Bryant, next season, who will be this CB2 for the Dolphins? And you know what else he reminds me of? Alec Ogletree. Next season, who the CB2 for the Dolphins? Lippett or Tankersley? Lippett. T-Zone, who do you think the Dolphins' best available quarterback if Tannehill is out for the season? Obviously, it's going to be Jay Cutler or J.C. Bryant because he didn't know at the time. J.C. Bryant, Pro Football Focus rated. Xavier Howard. I try to get all these in. I don't think we're going to get all these in, guys. J.C. Bryant, Xavier Howard at 48. And this sophomore season, how much will it change? Was it a 48? I know he scored 80s. That's going to change significantly. J.C. Bryant, is Xavier Howard a playmaker or just a slog? He's a playmaker and a great corner. Tucker, I don't think we're going to get all these in, guys. Let me see how much we got more. Yeah, we can't get them all in. God dang it, man. Alright, this is the last question. Guys, I might have to do another podcast tomorrow. We're gonna do another one after Thursday. Okay, so if you guys made it this far in the podcast, we'll do another one tomorrow because obviously it's after the preseason game. So we'll do another one tomorrow. If we'll do the rest of the questions, and if you guys could ask more questions. Now, this is Patrick says, is it possible that the Dolphins will go for a first-round quarterback next year? I'd say yes, and Joe Rosen is the pick. Josh Rosen, my bad, not Joe Rosen. I'm getting them all mixed up. I wouldn't mind Josh, depending on how he plays this upcoming season. But I don't know about that. No, this is Patrick. This has been your Miami Dolphins podcast for this week, and you're gonna get another one tomorrow. So I'm sorry I couldn't answer everybody's questions, but this podcast ran way too long. So I'm Skagster83. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next one.